Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nishay from NishaySnow.com. Welcome. You can find the show notes to this page over at NishaySnow.com/153. All right, welcome back, my friends. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 things you can do in order to boost your productivity. Before I get into that, though, a few housekeeping items. If you love this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate me 5 stars. Also, if you're on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. Please sign up for the newsletter over at nishaysnow.com/newsletter. And while you're on the website, if you head on over to the podcast page, just a reminder, I have SpeakPipe installed and you can leave me a voice message and I would love to hear from you. Okay, so LaKay is not coming on this week. She has a billion things that she is doing right now and she will give you a little update the next time she is on and connected. Long story. And I will have another amazing guest that I'm bringing you next week. But this week, my friends, you guys have me. And one of the things that I wanted to cover was how to boost your productivity. 5 simple things that you could start doing this week in order to do that. One question that I get from people I know, and also sometimes like via email or DM messages is like, well, how do you do all the things? Like truly, like how are you able to stay balanced and stay sane? And I've mentioned a lot of these tips before, but I just thought it would be helpful to mention it again and really double down on if you really do these 5 things that you will see a boost in your productivity while keeping your sanity. So I am just going to get right to it. And then the first thing I have, and you guys have heard me say it before, is the time tracking, my friends. You have to track your time. You have to know where your time is going. And that can be as simple as every time you do something during the day, just kind of like write it down in a little notebook or put it in your digital calendar. And at the end of the week, like really figure out where that time is going. And then it's cutting all those wasteful activities out of your life, my friend, or at least reducing them. And you guys have heard me say it before, and I am still pretty hardcore about this. There are only some days that maybe I go against this, but I don't start watching TV until 8 o'clock. If then, but usually it's not until 8. I come home, I work on a few things, I eat, and then I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes of something on Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO, or whatever it is. But that allows me to cut out space for the things that I need to work on, be it things for NishaySnow.com or craft projects. And it helps me to be very intentional about my time and really put a focus on what my priorities are. And so just give it a try. I'm telling you guys, it will make a world of difference. Okay, so what is the second thing you ask? Time blocking or batch working, whatever works best for you. So when you think of time blocking, think of it as this. You designate specific time frames in order to do tasks. So you might have a time block to do emails, a time block to do interviews, a time block to write, a time block to do newsletter stuff, a time block to do whatever it is. And, you can do batch working, which can be chunked into time blocking a little bit, but I see batch working as a little bit different, whereas where I'm batching tasks. So maybe I have a time block, for example, from 7 to 12 on Saturday in order to do podcast stuff. then I would then do batch work in that time blocked area. So I would edit multiple episodes. So that's batching. So I'm doing a bunch of things at one time. And then I might do one or two other things related to the studio podcast episode if I have time left within that time block that I've designated in order to do podcast stuff. And so you can see how kind of time blocking and batch working can go hand in hand. You can do one or both, but I do recommend doing both depending on what you do and how you do it. But it can be super useful. But that in itself really, really helps me move the needle because I know what I'm focusing on during specific hours of specific days every week. Okay, so the third thing is habit stacking. And then you're like, oh my God, what is habit stacking? I believe it was James Clear who kind of introduced this or made it popular. If I'm right or wrong, I'll put it in the show notes in the book, in the show notes if you want to learn more about it. But essentially, habit stacking is doing a new habit with an old habit. So, for example, if you have a habit of running every day and you want to start journaling, you can say, like, when I run every day at 7 a.m., after that, I am going to journal. And so now you're stacking those habits. And since you have already consistently done that first habit, now it's going to be easier for you to do the second habit because you are just stacking it on top of the first habit. And so for me, for example, that's how I can stay consistent with journaling, especially on weekends, because if I go for a walk, I usually just stack journaling right on top of that. Or as soon as I eat breakfast, I stack the journaling on top of it. And so now a lot of things that were a little bit more of a chore for me to do, not journaling was never a chore, but like maybe walking or something like that, they're just second nature now because I have stacked the habits long enough that now those habits are second nature. And then you could continue to stack habits on top of habits, and then you're just going to become more consistent with the things that you want to do, like the goals that you want to accomplish. And I've given an example of a lot of personal things, but you could do this also within your business or your career too. So it really is a really helpful way in order to make sure that you are adding new things to your day to day that makes sense for you and that you want to do, like drinking more water or whatever that might be. So we've got 3 things so far. We have the time tracking and cutting wasteful activities. We have the time blocking, and we have habit stacking. The 4th thing, my friend, is creating a system. And you guys have heard me talk about creating a system before. I know. And you're like, Nishay, what is this system stuff? Da, 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 da. But it is essentially a way for you to get things done. It allows you to track to-do lists, track projects. You have apps or, planners that you have in place that allow you to seamlessly know what tasks to go to next when you are doing things throughout the day and throughout the week. And everybody's system looks a little different. And it's always important to start small. So someone might look at my system and they might be like, oh my goodness, Nishay, I don't even know how you do all these things. You have all these different methods that you're using to track all these different things. It seems too complex. But what people don't know is it's like habit stacking. I started with one thing and then I used another thing and then I used another thing. And now everything is just second nature. So let me explain. So you guys know I love using Notion for personal and for NashaySnow.com. So whenever I want to save a website or save a book or save a movie, it's so easy to me. I have widgets set up on my phone. I put things in there. I rate things, bada bing, bada bam. When I'm doing my podcast, I have like this whole thing set up where I know future guests I want to have. I know which episodes that I'm editing, and it's great, right? There is a system in place for those particular things. But then I also like have a app on my phone called Any.do app. And whenever I run out of stuff in my house, like toilet paper or dishwashing liquid or whatever it might be, I just immediately open that app and I have like a little widget set up for it. And I just throw things in there like out of this, out of that. And so when I go to the store, everything is right there. Could I do that in Notion? I could, but I just like AnyDo's interface and how it works for me to be able to quickly do things like grocery lists. And that is the app that I choose to use for that. And so know that you don't have to like commit to this one app to do all the things. You can have multiple apps and multiple mechanisms in order to make your system work. And so, also, for example, like part of my system is, and I just started this recently, is I love Notion, but I also love brainstorming and writing things down as far as like thinking through newsletter, social media, and all the content ahead of time, like on paper, before I throw it into Notion and really do more planning. And so I just added where I have like this paper planner that I've been trying out for a month. And so far, it's really helped me brainstorm things and then put all the things where they need to be. But this is all part of a system that I have set up. It's not complicated to me because I have my phone set up to have all the widgets and apps in a certain place so I can easily get to what I need to get to. I didn't even mention my calendar, like anything that has a date and time automatically goes into my calendar. I have reminders for specific things, and that is part of my system too. And for me, I've just built it over time and it's very seamless for me. All those different bits and pieces might be too complex for you, but that's okay because you could create a simpler system. The most important thing is you use the system. And if you find that it's too complicated and you're not using it and you're not getting things done, that's when you know that your system has failed. My system hasn't failed because my calendar keeps me on track. Notion is now a knowledge capture system and my tracking system. And it also really helps me. Even this new planner that I've just purchased for brainstorming, kind of what I want to do as far as like NashaySnow.com and DreamsPlansIdeas.com is very useful too. And so I'm getting things done. And I'm not wasting time. So it is working. And that is proof that I have created a system that is kind of like foolproof. And so think about like maybe what your system should look like. Digital, analog, a combination of thereof, in order to get things done. So that was the fourth. And the fifth final thing that I will mention is having an accountability partner. LaKay and I have talked about how we've held each other accountable. I think I've had Monique on here and we've talked about the same thing, how we hold each other accountable. I have multiple accountable partners and I also am an accountable partner for several people too. Asking them, have they saved the money they said they were going to save? Have they started writing that book? Did they really truly post one thing a month on social media? Have they actually started to run or walk or whatever once a week? And the thing about it is it's not nagging because you have chosen to have someone that reminds you of these things. And you've also chosen to have someone where you can share your wins and they will appreciate those wins and reward you with like a thumbs up, a happy face, a go you. And it's really rewarding starting, and it really helps you stay on track. So I recommend getting an accountability partner. So has Monique, so has LaKay, and I think some other people I've had on the podcast. So those are the 5 things, my friends. Time tracking, avoiding wasteful activities, time blocking, and coupling it with batch working, habit stacking, creating a system that works for you, and getting an accountability partner. And these are all things that you could start this week. You could start one, you could start all 5, but you can do this. And one bonus thing that I'll say is build in some time to think. I have mentioned, I believe on the podcast, but I definitely know in the newsletter that I had started reading this book this summer called A Moment to Think. And I loved it because I think that it is so important that we build in space to just like let our mind wander and kind of think and brainstorm and figure out what's next, but where we're not obligated to do anything, but we could just like think. And it's so important because we're always like going, that we rarely have that time in order to do that. So we need to make sure that we build that in to our schedule. So that is a bonus one for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have, remember that I have this speak pipe over on theshaysnow.com on the podcast page, and you can leave me a voicemail and potentially it could get played on a future episode. But I would really love to hear if you guys start to implement any of these things, or if you have questions about any of the things that I've talked to. Also, in the show notes, I will have my free Notion template, because if you heard me talk about Notion, and you always hear me talk about Notion because I have the Notion travel planner, I have a free Notion template for people. I absolutely love Notion. I have a video that will help you get started. You could go to theshaysnow.com/Notion, or the show notes for this page, which is /153, and get started. And also I will have the James Clear book in the show notes for you, and anything else I can think of that may help you with any of these areas. All right. Well, my friends, I'm going to have an amazing guest on next week that I think you're going to absolutely love, of course. If you think this episode will help a friend, please share the episode with them, share the link with them. Thank you to everyone who's already shared past episodes. I really, really appreciate it. And if you do share it on Instagram, please tag me. I love to see those type of things. And remember, please rate me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing week, and I'll catch you next time. All right. Take care.